Power on.
Let's see. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about before we take our notes. So your tests were, the grades were input, as well as I went back, I graded any late work, and also that choosing between job offers. Some of you still need to reach out to me about your missing test. When you're going to take it, there are a handful of you kind of falling behind. I will try to reach out to you one-on-one so that you don't get too far behind. So I want to talk about that choosing between job offers assignment. So a few different things that kind of stood out to me when I was looking over them. I did read all of them. Some of them, it's clear that you guys put more thought into it, excuse me, than others. In the end, when I looked at the scores for everybody, jobs B and C won a lot more than job A. But some people still said they would choose job A because making money was important to them. A couple of other things, culture. So a lot of people talked about like the culture and the workplace environment and how that matters. What you want to be careful about is that's not always going to be on the job description. And they may tell you in an interview, if you ask, they may be completely honest, maybe they're not. You may want to go, if you get put in this situation where you're choosing between multiple jobs, I highly recommend that you go and observe at those places. If they really want to have you there and are open to letting you see kind of everything, you should be able to go there. You should be able to, you know, talk to employees, ask them questions. Some of you had questions about the employees. One thing I should have made more clear about this assignment from the beginning was that you assume all three of those jobs are a job you want, and they're essentially the same job, just with different conditions. So, because that's what it said. It said you're a college graduate. So, you know, if you finish college or if you go to trade school or the military, essentially when you get done, you have some background, some area of expertise that you're going into. So essentially you're going to be applying to the same type of job across the board. And you might have some variety depending on what you choose. But yeah, I think it's really important to go check out places. Before I started teaching at Venetia, I went, I observed, I went to another school, and I just liked the atmosphere better, the people. So I think that that is a lot more important to make sure it's somewhere you're going to be comfortable. Location, that was kind of, a lot of people said they didn't want to commute, but it wasn't a big factor to them. So make sure where you choose to live, you're going to have jobs available to you if you don't want to commute. And there was something else that stood out, but I cannot think of it now. Also on the weight, I went over this. The weight should have been the same for jobs A, B, and C. So if you said compensation is a 4 for job A, then compensation needs to be a 4 for job B and a 4 for job C. If you lost points, that was the main reason people lost points. If you lost more points, or you did that and still lost points, you can ask me kind of why. A few people didn't do question number 5, which was comparing with your class, which we did in our small groups. So there's a couple of different reasons you may have lost points that are obvious. And if you're not sure otherwise, like I said, please just reach out to me and I will go over that with you. I think that's it on that exercise. So moving on, today we are starting section 2, which is called Prices and Consumer Choices. So I want to kind of ask and just kind of get us going is, and I'm going to type it, how do you think stores set their prices? Oops. So in general, so one person said something, you guys can say it out loud or type it in the chat. Think about, how does a store set their price? You know, when you want to go to the grocery store and buy a gallon of milk, how is that price determined? Is the price the same at Safeway as it is at Raley's? So think about it, and it's okay to not be sure, but if you have an idea, let me know, because I want to get us talking about it a little bit. Our notes are not very long today, so we should be done by 2:30, but I wanted to kind of get us going here. Someone said demand. Anyone have any other ideas? There's multiple ways stores can set their prices based on the business cycle. Yeah. Inflation rates, which those kind of go hand in hand with the business cycle to an extent, but yes.
I would say demographic. Because like if it was a higher end area, then they would raise prices due to like a different like community or whatnot.
Yeah, that's definitely a factor too. The demographics and socioeconomic status of the neighborhood. Yeah, so the demand for the product and the supply and how much the product costs for the store itself. So, you know, if you're going to buy this gallon of milk from Safeway, who did Safeway get it from and how much did they have to pay? Because they're going to want to charge you more than that so that they can actually make money off of it. So there are multiple ways, and that's kind of where we're jumping into today. Getting these notes pulled up for us. So section 3.2 is prices and consumer choices. So we're going to talk about the different methods for setting prices, which is what we kind of got our discussion going on, and then talk about buying strategies. So there are 4 methods that sellers use to price products. Not one of the methods, this is just a definition. Normal profit is a profit that allows a business to survive and grow. So they want to make sure they set the right price, which can be tricky. They don't want to go too high because they want to be able to survive and grow. They don't want to go too low so that they're not making enough profit. And we've seen this definition before. Profit is equal to the revenues minus the expenses. So the money brought in, subtracting what it costs them. So the first method that they use is called cost recovery pricing. It's setting an introductory price high to recover the research and development costs. So if a company put a lot of money into developing this product, then it's going to be expensive because they have to get that money back. They already paid those expenses and now they have to recover that money. The plus side to this cost recovery pricing, so you might be sitting there thinking, well, if it's that expensive, no one might want to buy it, depending on what it is, obviously. But if prices are high, that invites competition to create something that is comparable, but with not as high of a price. Often generic of the same brand, or not same brand, I'm sorry, that's what generic is, but of the same product. So if they could have a less expensive substitute, that kind of helps our economy and helps us as consumers. Cost plus pricing is setting a price based on the production cost plus a markup. The markup is the percentage amount added to the production cost to obtain the price of an item. So this is what some people had said in the chat. Basically, you know, if this gallon of milk costs Safeway $3, they're going to want to charge a markup. They're going to want to get some money off of that. So places like grocery stores that have higher volume of customers and they kind of sell their products more quickly, they typically don't charge as high of a markup. But then other places like jewelry stores where a lot of their inventory might sit there a while, their markup is a lot higher. They might even double the price that it costs them so that they can make profit. And then value-based pricing is setting a price based on how much consumers are willing to pay. And so it'll be sold for the highest price that consumers are willing to pay. Which makes sense. If you're the seller, you know, you're going to want to get the most money possible. So you kind of try to figure out what that price is. So within reasonable limits, if it's something that the seller knows that consumers want, then they set that price, like I was saying, higher to make it more because it's more desirable. Oftentimes they have to do research ahead of time to figure out what people are willing to pay. And here with the value-based pricing also, if there are no cheaper substitutes, it's kind of the only one like it, then they can set it higher as well. And then market-based pricing, the last method, is setting a price to be competitive with prices of similar products currently being sold. This is also known as competition-based pricing. So if you're selling something, you want to make sure you're setting your price to be competitive. You don't want to be a lot higher than the other companies if it's a similar product. Obviously, if the product has more features or is more desirable, that's different. And then product differentiation is the marketing of products with the emphasis on how their product is different and better than similar products. So that could be like all these ads. So we don't see very many commercials anymore. Most people don't watch cable, but maybe you see them on YouTube or billboards. But these ads are going to show you like why this certain phone is better than another phone. They're going to show you the features of that phone that aren't on other phones or whatever the product is. And so that's the justification for why you should get that phone and possibly why that phone costs more than a competitor's phone. So product differentiation is the marketing of them, showing how they're different and better. Okay, so those are the 4 methods that sellers use to price products. And then here, it's how do buying strategies affect prices? So these are different buying strategies. So there's rational buying, which is the process of selecting goods and services based on need, want, and logical choices. That's how you should be making purchases, rationally. Emotional buying is the process of purchasing products based on desire rather than logic. Maybe when you feel sad, angry, lonely, you're letting your emotions get the best of you there. And then impulse buying is purchasing something on the spur of the moment without thinking it through or planning the purchase. Impulse buying can be little purchases or big purchases. And I'm sure several of you are guilty of impulse buying for small things. I am very guilty of it, especially things like at the grocery store. If you have a list and you go off your list because there's something on that center aisle display that looks good, that's an impulse buy. All that stuff they put at the cash register while you're standing in line to try to get you to buy it, those are impulse buys. So impulse buys aren't always a bad thing. I mean, if you're just buying a candy bar for $1 or something, but you don't want to necessarily go out and impulse buy a car, right? You want to be more rational about those larger purchases. Because when you emotional buy and impulse buy, that can lead to what's called buyer's remorse, which we're going to see on this next slide. So buyer's remorse is when you realize that you made a poor buying decision or you got into debt and you regret it. So buyer's remorse is basically, you know, you're aware that it was a bad decision and you can't do anything about it. You don't necessarily need to copy all this stuff in red at the bottom, but it's just to let you know, and we'll be talking about debt more later. Anytime you buy something using debt, so using your credit card, you're gonna pay more for that item than its sticker price due to the interest paid. And then you'll be paying for that item possibly for months or years. Again, it depends on the cost of the item. Oops. Sorry. It shows that I have 2 chat messages, but I am not able to open them. So I will look at them shortly if you are one of the people that messaged me. And if you need me to go back to a slide, if I went too fast, I can go back to that after. So again, emotional and impulse buying can lead to buyer's remorse, which is when you realize you made a poor buying decision and possibly got yourself into debt. And maybe you've heard people say like, but it's worth it, it's an investment. To truly be an investment, it has to have the potential to make you more money. Not all investments work out, but to be an investment, it needs to have the potential to make you more money. Otherwise, it's just an expense, which some expenses you still need, but expenses don't have the potential to make you more money, where investments do. What are you doing?
Just being crazy.
You are being crazy. You want to go play with your cars while I'm waiting?
What are you doing?
No.
I want somebody to put down money. Hey, Mommy and Nam here.
No. Okay, and so 2 strategies for rational buying decisions. So there's what's called economizing, which is saving as much as possible and spending money only when you need it. So you wait until it's necessary to buy the item and then spend as little as possible on that item. So that allows you to still meet your basic needs and save or invest. So again, that's delaying spending until it's absolutely necessary. That's economizing. So delay spending until it's absolutely necessary. So maybe you know your car is getting old and you've been wanting a new one, but if you're economizing, you're waiting until you have to go buy a new car. Whereas optimizing is getting the highest value for the money spent. So it could be, you know, you buy in bulk to get a discount or buy high quality. So again, you want the highest value for the money spent. It doesn't mean you buy the cheapest thing. But what you want to be careful with optimizing is you don't want to overspend. Sometimes something is on sale and so it makes it look like a good deal. And that might not be the case. But just something being on sale often makes it stand out to people. It's a marketing technique.
Hey, Mommy.
What?
Where's my phone?
In Mommy's room. Hold on. Go sit on the couch. All right, so that is our last slide for today. A couple of things before we go though. If anyone needs me to go back to a slide, just tell me which one and I can go back to whatever it was, and maybe it's all of them, that's fine. But before we go, like I said, everything should be caught up in the grade book unless you turned it in like the last hour. Your assignments from section 3, so last night was, or chapter 3 was section 1, tonight is section 2, and it's shorter, it only goes 1 through 19, which if you stay on and kind of knock your homework out right now, you should definitely be able to get that done by 3:10. But that's due tomorrow. I think I changed the deadline to 3 p.m., not 4 p.m., because that's how I have to take your Friday attendance, is by seeing if you turn something in. So to not be marked absent tomorrow, you have to turn that in tomorrow. And if you don't get it done, you can email me. As long as you communicate with me, I can take attendance that way as well. But Friday attendance is weird since we don't have a live class. So that's why assignments are due on Friday. Also, with your assignments, if you are not done, I highly recommend turning in what you have done. Especially if you have the notes done. Notes count for 5 points typically every day. And as long as you get them turned in on time. And if you're in class, you probably have your notes done on time. But if you turn in your notes late because you didn't finish your homework in time, then you're only getting 3 points for those notes instead of 5. So incomplete homework, not as big of a deal to kind of turn that in at the due date or late. It usually works out about the same. But if your notes are done and one assignment is done but not the other, turn in what you have on time. That way you can at least get full credit on those assignments, and then you can add the other ones later. Typically, I will say in your notes like what you're missing, and you probably already know that, but I still would recommend turning it in when it's due. You do not have any new assignments tomorrow. Next Friday, you will have a test, just kind of a heads up on chapter 3. Other than that, have a good weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday.